I hear the cornet crunching while we're. I love it.
Pause for cornets. Okay, resume.
Pause for cornets.
That's our new thing, right?
Yeah.
Pause for cornets.
1, 2, 3. Post Show and Tell with Dr. Ken.
Welcome to Post Show and Tell with Dr. Ken. We're here to talk about the episode Ken Teaches Molly a Lesson. I'm Joz, your host, and this is my guest co-host.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Liu. I'm a parent and education activist at K-12 News Network. So, Joz, do you want to remind us what the episode was about?
This episode's a lot of fun because typically there's usually something going on at home and at work, but this one's really focused around the family. With Ken and Molly, there's a lot of interaction around Molly and her first sip of beer. And she admits to having half a beer at a party, and she tells her parents the truth, but Ken sees this as an opportunity to educate his daughter in medical terms. And so that goes awry when he basically gets drunk and then humiliates her in front of her friends. Over on the mom and son side, Allison and Dave are having some mother and son interaction when Dave is really into German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and he wants to go to a reading for a book that he's reading. And so Allison takes him to the reading, and then things go awry there. So just a lot of fun stuff between father-daughter, mother-son going on in this episode. So Cynthia, there's a lot of parenting stuff going on in this episode. As a parent, what did you think about what was going on?
I 100% approve. In fact, I'm going to teach my son how not to drink by making him so sick from giving him different I'll maybe give him some shots, some margaritas, in the way that Dr. Ken did. I just thought it was very funny, and it's a kind of time-honored sitcom trope, but I fall for it every single time where, the parents are kind of goofier and more messed up than the kids are, so I enjoyed it.
But the other thing that happens is that, no matter how good Ken's intentions are, he manages to humiliate her. And I mean, isn't that what parents do? No matter how good or bad you are, you just embarrass your teenage kids,
well,
right?
Especially if they're teenagers, they're just going to be embarrassed by you no matter what. So I plan on just really kind of going whole hog with that. Leopard print, everything. Just, completely inappropriate clothing.
I love it.
We talked to Krista Marie Yu on the set.
We're back here for Post Show and Tell, and with us is Krista Marie Yu, who plays Molly Park on the show.
Hello.
Thanks for coming back and joining us again.
Thanks for having me back, Joz.
And we are sitting in your kitchen.
This is our kitchen, where we have breakfast and lunch and dinner.
And a lot of situations play out in this room.
A lot of the Park family happens here or in the living room.
So in this episode that we just saw, where Ken teaches Molly a lesson, it reminds me of those old-time sitcoms where it's you learn a moral, but it's actually a lot of fun, and we do learn something, but I think in a way that it's unexpected. Talk about this episode and what it was like to basically deal with the issue of alcohol.
Right. What I love so much about this episode is that alcohol does come into a lot of teenagers' lives. And we all have choices in how we deal with responsible drinking. And what I love is that Molly is a very responsible girl, and she is still very social and is able to go to a lot of parties and have a lot of fun, but she knows that alcohol is not something you drive with. She walks to her friend's house, and she's not gonna just she knows control. So her dad, on the other hand, might not really know control, but what Molly shows is that she's the responsible one and her dad can trust her.
I think this is a really great episode because it allows us to see a side of growing up in adolescence that we don't get to really see on sitcoms in a really real way. I think sometimes it's it can be a little preachy, but the reality is it's hard for parents to deal with some of these things, and I think it's also hard for the teenager to deal with it.
It is. I think that peer pressure is a real thing, and I think at parties people do pressure you to do things that you don't want to do, and sometimes to be cool you feel like you have to. I think what was reflected in this episode is that Molly may have felt a little peer pressured, and she had a little bit, realized that she didn't like it, and was able to stand up to her friends and be like, I don't want this, and was even able to stand up to her dad and say, no, this isn't what I want to be doing. I don't want to be drinking.
So in this episode, Ken tries to educate Krista in an unorthodox way. As an education activist yourself, you're always trying to do innovative things and try to push innovative things in education. Tell us about what it is you do.
Well, we probably wouldn't have Dr. Ken use his unorthodox methods of sort of scaring your daughter straight, so to speak, on not drinking too much. But what we try to do basically is to get more fun back into the classroom, and we do that by encouraging the curriculum to be different, to have hands-on project-based learning. We want kids to have plenty of recess and time to run around. We want theater and arts to be in the schools, and so all those kinds of things are things that we work for basically on a day-to-day basis.
What I love about Molly's character is that she's actually really, really strong. For a 16-year-old, she really knows herself. She has a really good sense of things, and I think like not even teenagers. Like sometimes it's like really confusing. Life can be confusing,
It's so confusing.
right? but like for a teenager who really has like a really good head on her shoulders, where clearly she doesn't really have a ton of life experience, but she really knows herself and she's extremely confident. And I think that's one of the things I love most about this character.
Thanks.
A lot of people don't realize this, but Molly's character is the first Asian American teenage girl that's been on network TV in 20 plus years. It's not since Margaret Cho's character on All American Girl. It means a lot to have an Asian American young woman be portrayed in sitcom TV. What's it like to realize that you're kind of like the only one right now, and to be representing a lot of people who don't see themselves on TV otherwise?
It's awesome. I think that I am so proud to be an Asian American actress, an Asian American teen actress, in fact. And I think that having Molly on Primetime Network, on Dr. Ken, and the show in general, is just normalizing Asian Americans on TV. Like, I'm not from Japan, I'm not from China, I'm not from the Philippines. I am an American girl who's third and fourth generation. I myself, Krista, am fourth and fifth generation. So it's a real thing. People like me do exist. It's not just some fake person out there named Molly. And so it's really nice to be able to relate to somebody who's an American Asian.
Yeah.
An Asian American,
Asian American.
both. And so, like, yes, I'm identified by my culture, but part of my culture is being American. We are your next door neighbors who have the same problems as you guys, and we are ethnically Asian.
I think like when I was growing up, I just didn't see Asians on TV, but definitely not like Asian American girls. So I think for me, I wish that I could have seen a character like Molly to identify with. I will tell you, this will tell you a little bit how old I am, but I did identify with characters like Winnie Cooper on The Wonder Years. I identified with Punky Brewster, because just like age-wise, this is where I was, right? And in real life, I was at this age, and those characters meant a lot to me growing up. So I imagine that there's 16 or younger girls who are looking up to you and thinking to myself, oh my gosh, there's a person like Molly who's on TV and I get to see her.
I hope so. I mean, like you were saying earlier, I think that being a teenager is a really hard time. I think that it's easy to feel misunderstood, it's easy to feel a little lost, it's easy to feel tons of emotions going all sorts of different ways, and to see that on TV, I think would really help know that you're not alone. You're having that same fight with your dad, and so is Molly.
Speaking of fighting with your dad on the show, you guys aren't really fighting in this episode. You guys are just you're trying to work things out, in fact.
Yes, I mean, Molly always knows that at the end of the day, everything that Ken does is out of love and concern and protectiveness. So she just kind of goes along with it and tries to respect him in terms of how he wants to help her. But by the end of the night, it's gotten so ridiculous that she gets a little mad.
I think I would be a little mad too.
I'm a little mad, a little embarrassed.
But I think now that you say that, it's like, yeah, that's kind of what my dad did to me all the time. He made me a little mad, a little embarrassed, but I loved him all the same,
best dad.
right?
Yes,
So,
because he's trying.
yeah. Let me think.
Oh yeah, another thing about Asian American girls is I hope that they can see Molly and know that they can be an Asian American actress too.
So Cynthia, one of the reasons I really wanted to talk to you about this episode is actually because you have a son who's actually pretty precocious, just like Dave is in the show. What did you think about that?
I found it completely believable that he had a huge crush on German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Why not? I mean, I think that's kind of the funny and surprising thing about having a kid is that they just have these interests that take them everywhere and anywhere, and your job is to just kind of, go where they go and support them. So I would also totally lie to get my kid into a reading of an Angela Merkel book.
So one of the themes in this episode is about the fun parent versus the boring parent. As a parent yourself, how do you and your spouse handle this situation?
Well, I would say that my spouse is definitely the fun parent. But I'm also really competitive, so I try to be like the fun parent sometimes. So so sometimes we'll kind of go back and forth on that. But I think neither of us really want to be stuck being the boring parent or the sort of scoldy parent.
For me, I'm not a parent yet, but I think about my parents and the relationship that they had. There's, you always try to have a good cop, bad cop scenario, but my parents, they're immigrant parents. They didn't really have that kind of parenting relationship with us, and so my mom was kind of like the mean parent, and then my dad was the meaner parent.
Wait a minute, that's wrong.
But that was the way that it was in my family. So, I just knew that if Dad came along, then, we'd done something really bad. But, with my parents, I didn't have fun with my parents. They were my parents. And I think it's just a different attitude and a different way of parenting that I didn't experience. So I loved seeing Ken and Allison, kind of competing to be who gets to be more fun.
And that's what I really related to about the episode, because I think we're Asian American parents. We're not, our sort of stern immigrant parents. So we try to relax, and we realize it's not only about only do this or only do your homework or only get good grades, but it's also relax and have some fun too.
So now we want to know, did you have a fun parent, or are you the fun parent? Let us know in the comments, tweet at us, follow us, subscribe. Let us know on social media what you think. And we're so glad that you joined us. Thank you so much, Cynthia, for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
See you next time.